Good evening, dear children. Let us come back to the chapter Walls Tell Stories. As already discussed, you can see how beautiful the fort looks during the daytime, during the nighttime interior, and here we are going to discuss about students who are having a conversation uh, during their field trip. They are happy that they have a history student with them, Didi, who is studying history, and she loves to enjoy visiting several places and to study about the forts. Your knowledge regarding the forts was quite amusing and interesting. As a result, let us begin with the conversation. Shailaja says, "Oh my goodness, the fort is extremely huge," whereas Sridhar is amused with the height and the way it's built. Kalyani says, "Have you ever seen such a huge gate?" Shailaja is wondering how many people will be required to just open and close the gate. Moreover, coming back to the next part, Sridhar and Kalyani are discussing about the thick walls. Kalyani is thinking why some part of the wall are in round shape. So Didi, who's a history student, a student who's studying history subject, is explaining that these type of walls are known as bastions. They are even higher than the wall. The outer wall of this fort has 87 bastions, thick walls, huge gate, and so many bastions. This is just a way to promote and encourage security in the fort. Dear children, when we are talking about the bastion, why do you think these bastions were made? These bastions were made for nothing but protection. And then in that big hole, from the outside we can't see anything, but from the inside there are soldiers who are guarding the fort, who are protecting the fort. Yes? What difference would be there if you were to look from a straight wall? If you look from a straight wall, my dear children, the difference will be clearly visible. But in a bastion, it is easier to hide, it is easier to defend and protect as well. So these are the answers. As there are no space in the textbook, my dear children, please write it in your notebook. Now let us talk about moving inside the fort. Shailaja is wondering how old the fort would be. Do you think the king built the fort so that he could live here? Dear children, the king did not builds the fort for himself. He builds the fort so that all the other people, be a farmer, a worker, an officer, and the other people who should live together of his territory happily and with safety. Yes, this is the reason why forts were built. So over here, Kalyani says it was written outside that Qutub Shahi Sultans ruled here one after another. Time period was from 1518 to 1687. Didi is wondering much before that in 1200 the fort was made of mud and different rulers lived there. Now Shailaja is excited about the map of the fort. Sridhar is reading the map. It has so many gardens, fields and factories. Also there are so many palaces. Palaces yani mahal. Shailaja is wondering, that means that not only the Sultan but many other people like farmers, workers and also the other people must be residing over there. Kalyani is now coming to a conclusion that it must have been a complete town. Now, this was just the assumptions the children had about what could be inside the fort. The Sultan's palace. The palace basically means mahal. Even in those days, they used to have buildings with 2 floors. Now, the building is in ruins. Ruins यानी कि पूरी तरह खराब हो चुका है. But one can imagine that earlier there were big halls and rooms here. Why? Because, my dear children, as I had already mentioned, earlier people used to have unadulterated food and not the adulterated food, and so they used to be tall, strong, and their heights used to be basic 6 feet. It was very common to have a height of 6 feet. Now, Sridhar is wondering, what about the carvings on the wall? See, this carvings on the wall should remind you of the chapter building with bricks. Kalyani is also wondering that she saw something like a fountain on one of the roofs. Didi is saying there were many big tanks and fountains, and they used to be full of water. My dear children, a fountain on the rooftop is really amazing. And not now, my dear children. We are talking about centuries ago. So, you can think about the engineering. Back in those days, centuries ago, there were no IIMs, IITs or JBIMS institutions. Great institutions weren't there, but still you could see how talented and skilled people were. Even now, when some engineers design houses, there is some dampness in the wall. And with those walls, what happens? You get fungus. Yes? Algae. Algae is basically present on damp walls. Long ago, there were fountains on the terrace. The building must have been made with such good understanding, with such good layout. If we think how people lived 500 years ago, what are the questions that you would get? See, basically, there used to be no electricity. So, how do you think people used to live ages ago? Also, how do you think rooftop पे fountain कैसे बनाया होगा? Now, let us discuss how do you think the fountains would have worked. Fountains would have got water supply from large tanks. What arrangements would have been made in the building for air and light? So, dear children, large windows, doors, ventilators, and the windows would have been made in such a manner that cross ventilation is possible. Cross ventilation, if it is possible, it makes the room more airy. Okay. Look carefully at the picture. See, look at this beautiful carving. Dear children, this should definitely remind you of building with bricks. And basically with a easel and a hammer. Now I want you to recollect the moment, okay, the dangerous moment during the May cyclone where there was no electricity, where there was complete shutdown and no power outrage in our Vasai Virar. How do you think you have spent your time? Yes, we have already discussed this. As each and everything is done online now, dear children, people are so comfortable using everything in their houses. So, life would come to a standstill for sure if there is no electricity for days and days and days. Now, let us read the map. Where is east and west? Sun rises from the east. We all are aware about it. Now, I want you to find out the directions of east, west, north and south in your home. I want you to find out the hall where you are sitting to study belongs to which direction. The bedroom where you sleep is in which direction. So, dear children, I want you to do this task in your notebook. I want you to try this map all on your own. This is something very, very, very interesting. You need to understand the directions and you need to try it all by yourself. These are the images of map, though little blur. If I am dividing it into 2 slides, it is not that blur. Dear children, this is the map index. बाजा के लिए ये सिंबल है, हाउस बाउली स्टार्स के लिए ये सिंबल है, स्टोर फॉर गन पाउडर के लिए ये सिंबल है, बाग दैट मीन्स अ गार्डन, पैलेस के लिए ये साइन है एंड रोड के लिए the sign is given. See. So dear children, if I will ask you one question from here, my question goes to you is how many baulis are in the palace or in the entire Golconda Fort. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. This is the same repeated one. So there are 5 Baolis given in the map. So dear children, ऐसे ही ये गोलकुंडा फोर्ट बहुत ह्यूज फोर्ट हुआ करता था. ठीक है? It is situated in Hyderabad, and this is how the map representation is given. The 4 signs: the right is your east, the left is your west, the below part is south, and the above part is north. Now, I want you to try those answers in the map and let me know whether it was very easy or difficult for you. Now, let us come back to the second part of this chapter. The second part of this chapter deals with, first and foremost, what is the need to have wars. There are so many things coming on the news that there are ample of wars going on. So why these attacks are going on? Why these attacks are going on? While we were all talking, Sridhar called us to see a big gun. That's a cannon. We ran up the steps. This must have been the Sultan's big gun. My question here is, my dear children, if everything can be handled by peace, why there should be wars? Yes, because who gets affected? Human blood, nature, plants, animals, society as a whole, everyone gets affected with wars. Now let us start with the story. Didi is narrating this was used by Aurangzeb. His full army came with their guns and cannons to attack, but they could not even enter the fort. For 8 months they camped outside the fort. Why would the army come here all the way from Delhi? A very curious question asked by Sherja. Didi explained, in those days emperors and kings played such tricks. They tried to make smaller kingdom a part of their own kingdom. वो लोग छोटे छोटे kingdoms को अपने अंडर ले लेते थे और then उस तरीके से पावरफुल बन जाते थे. कितनी बार वो फ्रेंडशिप से, कितनी बार फ्लैटरी मीन्स साइको फैंसी, मस्का मारना, तारीफ करना छोटी छोटी, और कितनी बार मैरिज के थ्रू भी होती थी. और जब कुछ भी नहीं वर्क होता था, कि जब मीठी मीठी बातों से नहीं वर्क हो रहा था, सो अटैक करते थे डायरेक्टली. सो कल्याणी इज वंडरिंग, how come Aurangzeb's army could not get into the fort? So Shailaja was giving a try to give the answer. Didn't you see those strong, thick walls? In the map, there's long, deep pit along with the wall. How could the army enter? Sridhar is now explaining, if the army tried to come from different side, soldiers in the bastion. Now, my dear children, आपको समझ में आया होगा कि bastion का important role क्या है. अगर वो straight wall पे होता, तो वो protection clearly दिख जाता. But secretly soldiers क्या करते हैं? Hide करते हैं. ये हर एक fort में होता है. No wonder it was difficult to attack the fort. Kalyani is saying, imagine the army is coming on horses and elephants with all their guns, and the Sultan's army stands fully prepared. Shailaja says, oh no, how many people and soldiers on the both sides must have been killed in all this fighting? Why do people attack and have wars? That's exactly why my question, dear children. We must make peace and avoid wars, because we all must improve nature, we must improve humanity, and we must not work on who is being powerful. We must just encourage our culture and ensure that we all are living happily and peacefully. Sridhar is saying guns and cannons are things of the past. These days, many countries have nuclear bombs. A single bomb can cause so much of destruction. However, dear children, I want you to discuss this as a lot of news you all must be watching or reading. So, have you recently heard or read about